Are you ready? Run.
I'm Liane. I'm Liane. Are you ready to ride the Are you ready to ride the Freakwency? Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to Riding the Freakwency. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Mr. Richard C. Doty. Richard Charles Doty was born in Barton, New York. Richard was raised in a military family. Richard's father, Charles Doty, was in the United States Air Force. Richard lived on several different military bases throughout the United States and Europe and grew up with enthusiasm for sports. Richard played baseball, football, and wrestled. Richard graduated from high school and entered the Air Force. Richard was assigned to special operations during his active duty Air Force career. Richard left the Air Force and attended a private college. Richard was hired by the Air Force Office of Special Investigation after attending intelligence courses taught by AFOSI, Defense Intelligence Agency, and the Central Intelligence Agency. Richard served at Kirtland Air Force Base as a counterintelligence officer. While assigned to Kirtland, Richard was briefed into a special access program that detailed the United States government's historical involvement with extraterrestrial entities and investigation of unidentified flying objects. Richard investigated numerous cases involving the UFOs and extraterrestrial contact by Air Force personnel and involvement of UFOs on, near, or above Air Force bases. One of the most famous cases of UFO contact involved a private security contractor's contact with a landed UFO on base. This case also involved the sighting of UFOs over a nuclear weapons storage area on Kirtland. The second famous case involved a private citizen who lived outside Kirtland Air Force Base, witnessing strange occurrences on base. Paul Benowitz had unwittingly tapped into a highly classified project on base. Richard was assigned to Area 51 during the 1980s, performing duties as a counterintelligence officer. After leaving the U.S. Air Force, Richard worked for the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin. Dr. Hal Puthoff was director and hired Richard to work on special projects. Richard has worked for several film companies as a technical advisor on movies involving UFOs, UAPs, and extraterrestrial-related subjects. Richard is currently employed by GAIA on Cosmic Disclosure episodes with Emery Smith. And talking to Liane Curtis on Riding the Freakwency. All right, here we go. Well, hi, Richard. Thank you for joining me today on Riding the Freakwency. Appreciate you taking your linear time to come talk to me.
Well, thank you for having me. It's going to be a fun chat.
It should be. I try to make them fun. So if you guys don't know, I'll say what Emery always says. Richard Doty, intimately involved with lots of NHI stuff for a pretty long time. Now you're retired, but you're definitely still keeping an eye on everything. And I definitely keep an eye on all of your Gaia cosmic disclosures. So, yeah. Thank you for being so present and so informative. All of your audience appreciates it very much, I'm sure.
You're very welcome.
Well, so I'm going to ask a couple little things that, and if you're uncomfortable, just say we're skipping that.
Sure.
What
Sure.
as a child, what were you thinking? And how far away is the reality as an adult you have from the imagination of what life would be like when you were a child. Like I'm just so always curious about stuff like that. What were you thinking when you were little?
Well, growing up, I had absolutely no interest in the subject. My brother, who was older than me, he was the UFO fanatic in the household. He read the first book I can remember because we shared a room together. He read one of the George Adamski's first books on UFOs, and he used to save up to buy the True magazines that always had UFO articles and stories in it. But me, I was um, I was more a Western. I loved Zane Grey. I probably read everything he ever wrote growing up as a child. We grew up in a military household, so we moved around a lot. I had friends that um, talked about the subject, but back in the 60s, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in the subject, except within a certain realm of people. And my brother would always try to bring it up at the dinner table, and my dad would say, let's talk about something else. But so I didn't have any interest in the subject whatsoever. I just never even thought about it. The only experience I ever had as a kid was we were camping. My brother, my father, and myself were camping up in upstate New York around Wanakena, and we were we had just finished cooking some food on a campfire. My brother and I went down to the lake to do some night fishing, and I was about 10. My brother was 14. And as we looked out south, we were on the North Shore looking out south, we saw a light come over the lake. And my brother immediately said, "That's a UFO. That's a UFO." And we watched it. It it came over the lake and stopped. Uh, Probably, I as a kid I couldn't really estimate, but probably 300 or 400 feet above the water. And then it shot off to the east. It came from the west, went to the east. So we ran back, tell my dad. My dad came down and said, "Oh, it's probably a helicopter or something." And that's the really growing up. That was the only UFO story I can tell, and so I didn't get engrossed in the subject until I was in U.S. intelligence some years later.
So it took till you got into your actual intelligence job for you to circle back to this stuff. Very interesting. And did your brother end up in a capacity in his adult life that also involves UFO information? Or did he, like, did you guys crisscross and you went his way and he went some other mainstream way?
My brother went into the army. He went to Vietnam, came back, went to a 2-year college, and then went into the government. Worked in the government, but not in an intelligence. He worked for the Defense Criminal Investigative Service, which is law enforcement. He did that for about 28 years. Now
Do
he
you know
raises
it?
horse.
Sorry. Do you
I said, "I'm sorry. Go ahead."
No, I'm like such a I'm technically a little ADHD. I'm one of those creative people that has a really hard time not interrupting. I even have a fidget ring so that I can do that. Right. Okay. Did he have any further experiences into his adulthood, or did that stop for both of you after that one thing?
He would go out and try to find him. He had a telescope, and he lived in a semi-remote area, and he would look to the stars to try to find him. But that's it. He never delved into it or never investigated it like I did. My career went from the regular Air Force to college. Coming out of college, went into intelligence, and one of the ironic part of my training, I after the regular Air Force, I went to intelligence, and we had to go through a number of different schools in intelligence operation course, which is a very, very, very demanding and difficult course, and then an OSI school, and then a federal academy, and a DIA course, and a CIA course. But during all my training, which lasted about 8 months, there wasn't one single mention, and this is in the 70s, okay, in the late 70s. There wasn't one single mention of UFOs, not one. Nothing. We were never told that we would be investigating them. Um, we the only thing I can ever remember in the OSI course, OSI school, they talked about Project Blue Book,
Hmm.
and that was it. And then the intelligence operations course, there wasn't anything mentioned about UFOs. And so then my first assignment at Kirtland Air Force Base as an intelligence officer, that's when I had my first encounter, so to speak, with something to investigate, and that was a UFO matter, and that's when I was briefed into it.
Interesting. All right. So I was born in 1965. So I'm just putting this in context with my own arrival, and I have not departed yet, as far as I'm aware. Um, this is real. Hi, we're here. Um, was there any kind of, what's the word, conflict, like an emotional conflict for you the first time you had to tell somebody you're seeing swamp gas, dude, knowing full well that that's not what it was? That must have been a really hard place to go unless you could compartmentalize that, shut it off like a doctor would, and get very specific, and just separate from your own emotional, psychological feelings and thoughts about that. That was probably part of your training to be able to split that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things one of the things you have to go through getting into intelligence is a battery of psychological testing, and a lot of people are eliminated during that
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
they can't cope with certain matters that are put forth in front of them. And then during the intelligence operation course is a very, very demanding course because you're put through scenarios. There are no win scenarios, but they make you go through the entire scenario until the very, 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 very end. Even though you know you're going to lose, but they want to see how you respond, how you act, how's your psychic during all this stuff. Are you going to go crazy? Are you going to start yelling and screaming, or you're going to quit? And those are the things they don't want you to do. And so when you go out in the field, you're prepared psychologically for things. Now, I have to admit that when I was briefed into the program in 1979, I was not prepared for what I was hearing. The fact that the United States government has had contact with extraterrestrials from 1947, and then we were, given a full briefing on what the Roswell, and we saw a little movie, old movie about the 16 millimeter recovery movie. Um, Talked about other crash sites, how we deal, and how we investigate. After that briefing, I tell a story. The briefing occurred on the west side of Kirtland Air Force Base. Our offices were on the east side of Kirtland Air Force Base. And so when I left about 3 in the afternoon from the briefing to go back to the office, I pulled into a parking lot along the way, and I just sat there and contemplated what I just heard, and all sorts of things were going to my mind. Was this some kind of psychological operation? Was this some kind of information given to me to see what I was going to do with it? Was it real? When I got back to the office, my boss, John, I went into his office, and he kind of smiled at me, and he said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Is all that stuff true?" And he said, "You're going to learn that not only is that true, but there's a lot of stuff out there you're going to learn about that. And I thought, wow. And then that became my career, and I realized that everything they told me was factual. Wasn't a psychological operation because I went out in the field and I investigated these things, talking to people that have went through an experience, abductions and all sorts of things. Now, you talked about what I felt like telling somebody what they saw was actually swamp gas or weather balloon. I never had to do that. There in the United States at that time, there were 122 other intelligence officers doing the exact same thing I was doing. Some of them have probably had to do that. Uh, my first major investigation involved an incident that happened in a classified area of Kirtland Air Force Base called Coyote Canyon Complex. It was a landing out there, and I had to investigate that. Well, when I was the on-call intelligence officer when that happened, I hadn't been briefed into it, anything. When I go out there and interview people who claim that a UFO landed here and all these things happened, immediately I thought these guys are crazy, even though they were seasoned military policemen. But when I went back and got the briefing, I realized that probably everything they were telling me was factual.
Well, they're as
The
crazy
only
as you and your brother were when you looked up and saw the orb go across or the craft go across. Come on.
Yeah, right. And then, of course, the famous Paul Benowitz case, which was actually the second case that I investigated as a primary agent. The first case was I was a secondary agent because I hadn't been briefed into the program yet. So that case was turned over to another agent who had been briefed in, and then later I helped him with that investigation. But of course, the famous Bob Benowitz case is where I'm labeled as a disinformation officer in it. So,
Right, that whole thing is very kind of uncomfortable, but now that you brought it up, like that whole weird thing with Linda Moulton Howe, and I don't know, it gets all political, and then I feel like as soon as people's egos get involved and they don't want to be wrong, and then there's like this whole thing of being ashamed if I'm wrong, and then people are gonna like, and that's all ego. It has nothing to do with being an awareness and being conscious. Like as soon as you start throwing all that stuff at it, it gets icky. So like, I'm sorry all that happened, but it kind of, I guess is, do you want salad or soup with as a side? It both, then it's both and both. You kind of don't have a choice. Comes with the dinner. Um, how did you, how did you navigate being labeled a disinformant? Like how did that affect you and your ability to show up at work and feel okay in your own skin? I'm asking all these personal questions.
yeah, I understand. Well, I wasn't, I didn't realize, and I wasn't that popular, obviously, then. Nobody knew what I was doing. I had a job to do, and I was doing a job, and I considered my job to be important, and I took orders. Everything I did was sanctioned. I mean, somebody told me to do something. Within the intelligence community, you couldn't do an operation without a operational plan, and that operational plan had to be approved by headquarters, DIA or somebody else up there, and then it came down to me or us at the lower level to
To execute it
perform that
physically.
operation. Yeah, exactly, execute it. And so I did my job, and there's so much more to the Paul Benowitz case that people don't know about, and there's a lot about it, several parts of it that are still classified that I'm not ever going to talk about. But the fact that I had to disinform um, Paul was something that was very, very, very easy to do because number one, he was a MUFON investigator. He already believed in it. Everything that he saw and did he believed were alien related. So all I had to do was agree with him. All I had to do was say, you know what, Paul, I think you're right. I think what you're saying is, in fact, But we knew initially what he was seeing were the very back then, highly classified uh, experimental Air Force drone program. He was seeing these things flying around, and they were actually the drones, and they were being controlled by an aircraft close to these drones, and that's what he was seeing, and that's what he photographed, and we just had to convince him that it was UFOs, and he convinced himself. So that part of the Bob Benowitz case was pretty easy to handle.
I'll tell you, the public as a civilian, as part of the citizenry, I what a show. And I mean that brings me to like New Jersey and yikes. Just what what is even going on? But we'll get to that. I'm still we're still we're still in the 70s.
Right.
Um, okay, at what now my curiosity, I'm looking at the words Hal and put off right down there. At what point did you guys cross paths? And was he your boss at a certain point
No, well, yeah, at a certain point
in your
in my
career?
life,
Yeah.
yeah, but not then.
That
I
didn't
met
happen
Pat.
until the 80s.
Well, I met Hal when the aviary started within the aviary that was code named by somebody. We had a group of people that met quasi-intelligence personnel, met beginning in the 1980s, and Hal was a member of that gang,
Hmm.
and as was Kit Green, John Alexander,
Oh
Ron
God.
Pandolfi, and many others, Richard Helms. And I was invited to the meeting based on a friendship my father had with Richard Helms, who was former director of CIA, and I was in intelligence and I had a clearance. I really, at times, wondered what I was doing at these meetings with these people that had years more experience in the realm of intelligence than I did. But uh, I was kind of initially I was a field investigator for him. I went out and did things for him. Later, had other jobs within that group, and that's where met Hal was in that group. And later in 1994, after I left intelligence, I went to work for Hal at the Institute for Advanced Studies, and I worked there from 94 to 2007.
Interesting. Well, so like my only other, I guess, observation, it's more of an observation. You've really lived a juxtaposed life in the sense that in intelligence, you don't know if the stuff you're gathering is necessarily going to go to the group who are responsible for treating P3s really, really well, but then making P3s do really bad stuff. You know, um, so I feel like it's fractured into two groups. The ones that want to do bad stuff with the tech and keep it quiet and not spill what's been going on because everybody's going to get really pissed off at first. Um, and then the people who just really want to make gentle, kind contact and let these non-human intelligence know that not all of the species is like those guys. you know I'll just say, and now I'm skipping way ahead of where I wanted to. Welcome to ADD and stream of consciousness. But how it's really, really, really just down to that, like good guys and bad guys. And at this point in your life, just I guess as a civilian, would you encourage um peaceful contact through CE5 and stuff to and I don't I think vocabulary is an issue. I go on about that in my live, so I won't bother you with it, but I think vocabulary is very important. How would you counteract, not fight the other side? Like to level out the playing field. Is there a way to do that so that these creatures whose communications have been intercepted. Michael Herrera is talking about interceptions of, we really kind of want our people and our craft back. Do you mind? And that somehow changed. And this is all hearsay because, Stephen Greer saying there was more things that intercepted between two races talking to each other, saying we've about had it with these angry monkeys. Like what? Like I wish that humanity would come to a place and all this would come to a head in a manner that allows all kinds of things to change. I mean, I think identifying as consciousness instead of as a personality would help. Like if humanity had like a little bit of an intervention and a rehabilitation and were able to identify differently, then maybe the what I call the playing field would look different, and maybe there would be no necessity for high-tech weapons and fighting. Like there's got to be a place and a way and a frequency at which we can all transmit and receive. Like we all got to get on the same frequency, and I feel like consciousness is the singularity, and I feel like the control thereof is pretty key to anybody who wants to be in charge. Like, so I guess I'm going from end game. Like, what's the end game? Like, are we controlling consciousness so that we can just go beat them up and play Wild Wild West in the galaxy now? Like, what is happening?
Well,
That was a
first
lot.
of all, yeah, yeah, I understand. I understand. I understand.
I'm
This
concerned, Richard.
this is a problem with the subject, and this is a problem with disclosure. Um, there are so many people out there that are creating an aura of a certain uh,
Ilk.
terminology
uh,
and a certain uh, story, a
Narrative.
timeline,
It's a narrative.
and narrative of something that they don't know anything about. Um, there are people that have been briefed into the program, myself, John Ramirez, Lou Elizondo, Chris Mullins, John Ratcliffe, who, I mean, I can name Hal Putoff, Kit Green, John Alexander, all these people, and there's a long, long, long list of these people that are briefed into the program. They're
Of all
silent
my
because
next guests, thanks for the list.
they they're silent when these people come out of the woodwork and start talking about things that are simply not true.
Mm.
Um, the United States government, believe it or not, has has a good hold on this problem. They know what, number one, there's so much fantasy out there that people will just start talking about that is simply not true.
Well, can I
Uh,
stop you right there for just a
sure.
second? Like here, if I'm dating a dude and a dude lies to me and I don't know that he's like dating some other chick, and then I get some kind of feeling and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And then he's like, "Yeah, you're crazy, your imagination, gaslight." And then next thing you know, 2 years later, you find out, sure enough, there's the girlfriend, there's the excess, there's the money getting siphoned, all this stuff. It really it makes it's the psychology, I guess, on the receiving end of the information or non-information, confusing information. Like the public has been left to its own imagination because nobody's telling us anything. So I think secrecy is it's a fine line between it backfiring on you guys because you're not saying, not you personally, but like you can't say anything, so we have to imagine it, and then now we
Mhm,
have the crazy. Like it's
mhm.
more psyop. Like it, I don't know. It's a psyop on a psyop on a psyop on a psyop, all stacked vertically, and now we're all crazy and angry.
Well, you're absolutely right. The government's its own worst enemy, because if the government would have came out and told the truth in 1947 or 8 or 9 or 50, we wouldn't be where we are today. The people would know it, and they probably would have already conditioned themselves to understand it. Now, over the years, uh, disclosures happen, but the government's never sanctioned anything, and that's where the people start writing books about Roswell, writing books about this, which are not true, and none of it's true. I mean, there's very little out there that's been written about the Roswell incident. But Bill Moore's first book is probably the closest to the facts. And then Stan Friedman's investigation is really close to it.
Mm.
But then they talk about other crash sites. There's been a lot of crash sites, believe me. And when I worked at Area 51, I knew about those crash sites. I have actually visited a couple of crash sites. Um, and so we know where most of the crash sites were in the United States. We've recovered debris, we recovered non-human intelligent technology from these crash sites. But there are places people are claiming that there was a crash. There wasn't, such as Aztec. There wasn't any crash at Aztec. That was made up by the mayor of Aztec to bring tourists in. That was
Tourism.
that place. That story was put to rest years and years and years ago. But anyways, people can write the books and people will buy them, and that distorts the community.
Well, but that goes back to the psychology of society, waiting for somebody else to do the work, somebody else to come up with the answers, somebody to save me, somebody to follow. It's like, what are we, like lemming and angry lambing monkeys? They're running off cliffs and killing each other on the way. It's crazy. And
I agree.
if
I
we're
agree.
but what get this, like, let's just, for the purposes of this conversation, regardless of what you believe or don't believe, let's just say human beings are all psychic, period. We've never been informed of that. So it makes it paranormal and spooky when really it's like breathing and it's innate. We have remote viewing. The government put lots of money into that. I've done remote viewing very casually and been given a single blind target. And in 6 weeks, probably, or maybe it was 8 weeks, 60%. I got 60% accurate. And my demented mother even got a very accurate thing, you know? And it's definitely has to do with getting yourself into a state where you're not like your thoughts, your daily life, all that goes away. And I think there's a certain discipline, because I'm an actress and I've had to play roles and make up whole histories for people. I probably would have been a really good agent. um, so I think I've got a leg up on most civilians because of that history I have. I'm really sorry. It's New York City, guys. Wee, wee, wee. Um, but most people still think that psychic ability is BS. It's crazy. Nobody can really do that. But I know what I know. I know what I've experienced. I know in certain meditations I've had things happen that I can't explain. Most people would have to take ayahuasca for that to happen. The things that come through my fingers are not normal. You saw the picture I sent you. Like, where does that come from? Like, so let's just say we're all psychic. The government is screwed if everybody figures that out. That's all I'm saying. Like, and to me, if that's the case and they know that the species is psychic, if I were the government, I would do everything I could to make sure nobody ever found that out. Like, and then
Well,
there's a crime against a species right there, not letting it and forcing it to limp when it shouldn't be. That's crazy to me. That's there's the biggest slight on humanity. It's not even the lying. It's just not letting us evolve and understand who we are. That just makes me really sad.
no, I understand where you're coming from, and I've tried. I went to the Ed Dames weekend course in remote viewing, and I flunked. I didn't get any of it,
Come
so I
practice with
wasn't.
us on a Tuesday or a Thursday. You won't flunk.
But I've used the technique in intelligence. I didn't, but I utilized the end results of remote viewing back in the 80s, and so and the the government side of it, and of course I worked with Dr. Putoff and Kit Green, who were, Dr. Putoff, probably him and Todd were the father of remote viewing. Um, Remote viewing was never 100%.
Right.
Okay. And they admit it. And, the very, very pat price was the very best of the best. And there was another person a woman who's never been disclosed. She wasn't even in the government. She was
Mm.
recruited from a school teaching job in Maryland into the government. The CIA uh, brought her in because she was a natural remote viewer. She was a psychic. This
Mhm.
lady, I've met her. I In fact, I spent last summer down a week with her down in Florida. She's retired and moves down there. She lives down in Florida, but she is the closest person that I've ever met to being a true 100% psychic. She could she could determine things that was going to happen. She could see into the future. She's like 88 years old now
Is
and
she on the
still does.
spectrum? Is she on the spectrum at all? Like, because
She is a classified. Her name is still classified, so I can't disclose her name.
no,
But
not
she
who
works.
she is, but is she like meaning is she high functioning autistic in any way? Did she? Because the telepathy tapes is a thing too. Like these kids who do they can receive, but they can't transmit, so it forces them to have to communicate silently, and like if emotions or energy in motion and thoughts do have some kind of an electrical or electromagnetic aspect to them, you're thinking things into a unified field from what I feel like is comfortable. Um, like how can all information it's non-local information, so you would think that this woman is probably either poised or oscillates at a certain frequency to be able, right? It's about frequency then that we're coming to frequency talk now, probably.
We can do that because one of the things that Dr. Putoff did during his during time I was working for him was it had a DARPA project to determine human frequencies. And what the government found that every human being has a unique frequency. I
And
was
how do
actually
they
a
measure
guinea.
that? What tool do they use to measure it? And is there, like, here's one. Are they with scalar technology able to measure the frequency of each human on the, and I know this is getting into like science fiction, but like this is just where my imagination goes. Is there some kind of function somewhere on the planet where everybody's frequency can be read by something so that they can, like a constant
Yes,
monitoring of our frequency collectively and individually? Is there such a thing?
yes.
And
There
it's
is a there is a device that was developed, and you can do it yourself. You can determine your own frequency by some training. Now, unfortunately, most of that is unclassified because the original program or project dealt with uh, the military.
Is this a
The
bad time to
military,
say you'd have to kill me if you told me?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, or brainwash you. But one of the things they determined was that if if we if our we could manipulate our enemy's body by interrupting their frequencies, the soldiers on the battlefield, we we could win. We could win a war if we were able to shut down that soldier, not kill him, but just shut him down so they go to sleep or they think of something else or they drop their weapon. That was the DARPA project. It
But weren't
wasn't.
they using weather manipulation early on to do things like that, to make crowds disperse? They were using all kinds of things to make people stop doing things that were inconvenient for
They were using harmonics
Right, so then now we're
sound.
back into sound. Okay, and I make music. So, and then sine waves, and then hemisync, and then popping out of your body, and I've said this to a couple people. Talking to Bob McGuire, and I'm talking to a guy named Paul H. Smith, because I'm very curious and may apply to get a scholarship to go down to Monroe Institute because that's not in the budget right now, but I'm so curious. I can make my own sine waves, and like I said, I had a very interesting response to a guided meditation. But frequencies, man, like Brett Morrison, The Shadow, was a good friend of my mom's, and you were very kind to answer some questions because my mom was at Wheelus Air Force Base for a minute in the 50s. I emailed you a couple years back, and
Yeah,
you asked around for me, and I
right.
appreciate that. But so yeah, like frequencies and harmonics, like are musicians more apt, and creative people more apt to um be able to deflect them because of our innate knowledge about sound than a regular Joe, shall we say? You see,
Funny you should mention that because
my intuition
uh,
working, babe. I'm telling you,
you
sorry.
you read my mind.
I do
I'm
that.
worried about that.
Don't be
Shit.
worried. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not working for anybody, I promise. I'm just trying
Okay.
to find stuff out, dude. I'm trying to feel comfortable in this reality, I guess. And if I can offer conversations out to the public that make them feel better and feel a little more in control, um, I just want to
I,
help.
I'm going to tell you something that, and I'm very careful how I word this,
Vocabulary
but
is key.
the and it's not going to be classified. I'm not going to go into that part of it, but
Of course not.
one of the things that when the original psionic program or psychic program that the Army experimented with back in the 60s, this is before remote viewing, they were testing soldiers' psychic ability. Not remote viewing now, there was just psychic ability. The Army had a program back in the 60s. In 1966, there was a civilian psychologist working for the Army at Fort Detrick, Maryland, and he found a soldier that could predict things, and so he thought, well, wow, that's great. Maybe maybe there's a program that we could develop to find these soldiers out there. Well, so he started finding soldiers, putting them through some testing, and come to find out, almost every single soldier, and this is both male and female. Of course, back in those days, there wasn't a whole lot of females in the military, but the few that were there, he found out that the majority of soldiers that had a music background or played an instrument or knew notes, could read a script, a music, had this ability.
My
And
mom was
so
psychic. That makes sense. She didn't understand it or know it, and she would just get these feelings and tell me like, "Oh, you're gonna be up for 3 movies, and you're gonna get two, and you're gonna have to choose one." Damned if she wasn't right every freaking time. So weird.
well,
But
people
she was a
have
jazz
this
composer.
ability. Oh, she was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I come
Oh.
from a musical and entertainment family, so I'm cursed on both sides with this nonsense.
One of the off note here, side note, uh, when I was 7 years old, my mother had an ear for music. She played she could virtually play almost any instrument, but um, she made us kids put us through piano lessons. And
Good.
I think that was the smartest thing I didn't like it at the time. Every Thursday, Mrs. Pauline would come over and an hour and a half of music. And
Yep.
so I learned to read music. I knew all the chords. I started playing the guitar. I got into music. That's that and taking typing in 11th grade was probably the two smartest things I did because I can type now and the music. I even played in the band at one time. But anyways,
Well,
getting back to the
du
subject.
spreche Deutsch, ja? Du
Ja, ich
spreche
spreche Deutsch auch. Ja, ja.
Ja, ich spreche Französisch. Alors,
Französisch.
oui, moi, je peux parler en français complètement sans accent and
Uh,
all. Yeah, exactly. Like, oui, demi-tasse. I know you're going to tell me plume de ma tante. Yes. Yeah, well,
yeah,
so you have an aptitude for languages too, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
goes hand
yeah.
in hand with it too. Like you got all the markers, man. Want to jam? I got lots of guitars. If you come to New
Yeah.
York,
Oh, I do too. I got them over there.
we should write
I
some
got
music
a
together.
Fender. Jimmy Church and I did a thing here a while back.
Did you? He
Yeah,
plays music too, huh?
oh yeah, he's a guitar. He probably has 100 guitars,
You
and
know
I
who
got three.
I've got a lot. I've got a lot back in
Good.
storage in LA, but these are the ones that made it here. I've got my acoustic Martin bass, an old
Oh, bass.
I play
I'm a
bass.
bass player.
Are
Yeah, me
you?
too.
Yeah. Got a
It's
whole
easier to play. The
It
lesser
is
chords, the better.
so much less pressure on a bass player to just hold the root note and hold the
Right.
right.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of not fancy bass.
When I was in a band, we're getting off the subject here. When I was in a band, Lords
Cares.
of Sound,
It's the
I could
subject
play
now.
either bass or rhythm because rhythm, I thought I could always stay to the rhythm,
Right.
a rhythm rather than the lead guitarist playing the lead part. The rhythm or bass, had no problems with.
Right.
When I was trying to play lead, I'd always mess up with the chords.
Yeah, I will never rock a solo for you, Rick, no matter how much you ask. It ain't gonna happen. Sorry. My daughter actually has an aptitude. She's beautiful. She's my youngest. She made it to top 48 on American Idol when she was 15.
Oh,
She was still 14
wow.
actually when that happened. Yeah, and she writes and she got into a space where she really wanted to look, which kind of has nothing to do with the message in most of her earlier music. So that kind of got weird for her. And now she's just got a job at Aritzia, which is great for her because she feels safe and solid. And, being a musician and being an actress, all three of my kids, grew up watching me freak out, be said no to so many times. They probably wonder why I've never had a nervous breakdown. I'm so used to that word. Um, but yeah, like let's jam sometime. If we're ever in the same room at the same time and there are instruments, we have to
Absolutely.
play a little bit. That would be so much fun. That'd be
Oh
so
yeah,
much
I've
fun.
done it. I've done it before with people who, in fact, I years ago, I was up in Boulder working for Gaia, and I worked for him, and this one of the technicians, a sound technician, behind the camera, he had a guitar in the corner, and I said, "Hey, you play?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I mess around with it." I said, "Yeah, I do too." He said, "Well." He went and got, he said, "What do you play?" I said, "I play bass." So there we are in the back of the studio, a Gaia. Him and I are jamming back and forth
And what
playing.
did Sid Goldstein have to say about that? Sid Goldberg, sorry. Sid was like, what the
Sid,
hell's
yeah.
going on here?
Sid,
Turn into
he
a,
just thought it was funny.
I'm sure
Thought
he
it was
did.
funny.
He's a
He
good
came in,
guy.
he said, "You guys don't make it. The sound is horrible." I said, "Wait a minute, we're just tuning these guitars first. Wait a minute, wait." And it's the bass, and he was more of a lead guitarist. So we were just doing Cockers, and some of the things that we knew, Rocky Mountain
Was
High,
anybody
and
moving like
things.
Joe Cocker? That
Oh yeah, he was. I was. He
he
was.
had a special way of moving that, Joe.
Oh, Joe did. Yeah, he
Oh
did. He
man.
did.
God bless you, Joe Cocker. Wow. All right. Well,
Anyway, getting back to what I was trying to say about
sorry.
music,
I
the
warned you.
Army, yeah, I know. The Army developed psychics even before remote viewing. They put them on missions. Some of them were successful, some of them weren't. Then they determined that there are some things that you can do as a psychic, some things you can't do. So then that moved into remote viewing, and as you probably know now, there's even a new technique called thought projection acquisition, which is a new technique. It's still
Right, you guys
classified.
were talking about that. I think they're episode season 24, episode 6, folks. If you want to talk about
Yeah,
that,
I got it.
what he's
Yeah.
talking about, like believe me, it's sad. I've turned from mainstream TV and knowing all the celebrities that I, had a hit list of working with to watching Gaia, and now I have a hit list of all the people I want to talk to. I don't care about TV anymore. I like informing myself. Um, wow. Yeah, so thought the acquisitions, what'd you say?
Thought projection
Projection
acquisition.
act, yeah, okay. So
And
the
again, it's
grabbing
been,
thoughts that are as they're coming out, you're
yeah,
acquiring.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's
It's exactly
exactly
what
what
it
they
says it
do.
is. Well,
Yep.
this goes into like technology assisted consciousness and consciousness assisted technology. There are both of those things. So cat and tack. That was my takeaway from Greer's episode 4. Cat and tack, but we like kitties, so of course we remembered that. Anyway, and that's what all the P3s are doing, and that's what they're using
Yeah,
to, to
they're
attract.
using and I guess, and again, it's still highly classified. I only know what has been leaked on the internet, and what
Right.
some of the people have told me about it. There's a person within our advanced working group, which are retired intelligence officers,
Mm.
who was in fact, and they call them experiencers, and and he said he did this. He was trained in 2010. He did it up until he retired, and he explained to us how it worked. And there was three different ways of doing it. Even like you said, bringing thoughts out of a person's mind, just going in and getting them out of a person's mind. Then projecting yourself to a location and gathering something. And that's similar remote viewing.
I
Quite.
feel like that's a cross, like a hybrid between out of body experience, like astral projecting and
Yeah,
remote viewing, had a baby.
absolutely, exactly. You got it. I mean, that's exactly what how they explain it is projecting astral projection with remote viewing. That's
Maybe I
exactly.
should stop talking to you and apply for a job with your people because I need to make some money. I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I tell you what, if you you could make a lot of money doing that if you a little bit of training. They went through a year of training, so they've
Look, I'm
learned.
only
And
60.
what
I'm
do you?
not even 60. I'm a young chick. I'm a spring chicken yet. A year? What's that? Feh. Be happy to do it. Like if anybody's listening and
You,
wants to come find me, come on. I speak
well, you don't
French.
look 60. I don't want to flatter you too much, but you certainly don't look
What do
60.
you want
And
from
I
me,
probably
Doty? He must
I,
want blowing
I
smoke up my hoo-ha. No,
no, no, no,
he's a
no, no,
married
no, no.
man. Stop that.
Yeah, 40 years
That's
of
beautiful.
marriage, 40
I love
years.
that. I love that.
One
Actually,
married, one marriage, and it's lasted 40 years. And I waited until I was 31 to marry.
the woman
And
of your dreams. That's right.
that's right.
You're forever babe. That's good.
That's right.
You
That's
guys look
right.
very happy and you're a very handsome couple, if I do say so
Thank
myself.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You have
Thank you very
pugs? Do you
much.
have pugs? Did I
I
remember?
have a pug. I have a
Just
pug.
one.
I have,
My daughter also has one. Where is it? You're looking around. Is it
yeah,
there?
well, she's
She's out.
someplace
Probably
in
with
the
her boy.
house. But yeah, she's our baby, our kids. My daughter is a nurse. My son is a he's a works at a ski area, Aspen. He's a ski patrol, a paramedic. He served in the Marine Corps, got out, uh, and we want him. We're pushing him to get married, but he's not the type that he can stick with one woman at a time. You probably know those guys, and he's
Sadly,
a he's a great kid. We always say, my wife and I would say, he was uh, he was such a great kid growing up. And my daughter was the fanatic. I mean, she would always get in trouble. We would call my son low maintenance. He was just laid back kid, and did the things he wanted to, skateboarder, and he went to UNM college, and then one day he called and right after 9/11 and said, "Dad, I joined the Marine Corps."
oh my
And
God.
he was just finishing the second year of college. I
Timing.
said, I
Timing.
said, well, are you going to go into ROTC and become an officer? He said, no. I said, whoa, wait a minute. Finish college and then go. He said, Dad, too late. I already signed up for Marine Corps. Oh, I said, no, you don't want. Anyways, of course, he
Semper
went
Fi,
to
Dad.
Iraq.
Semper Fi, Dad.
Yeah, yeah.
Semper
Uh,
Fi. All right.
He
Well, he
went to,
lived. He's here. He's safe. He's skiing.
well, he got wounded in Iraq, but got shot in the leg, but he's fine now, and now he's back and he's doing his own thing. He loves the mountains. He loves skiing. He's he was tried out for the Olympic cross country team.
Oh, how
He
cool.
was the third replacement, didn't quite make it, but he's an athlete, born athlete. He's a great paramedic, and he does his own thing.
Well, he's
And my
probably a good
daughter,
kid. I mean, you're
oh,
such
it's
a personable guy. You seem such, I mean, you're very gentle and very kind. I'm not sure how you ended up in the military, but
well, you haven't seen the other side of me.
well, my other side is kind of psycho. Like if you ever see the movie Girlfriend from Hell, that gives you kind of a clue. But yeah, we'll not go there. It's not about me today. It's
I'm
about
gonna have to go out and watch that one. I'm
you can
gonna have to
always
go watch your movies now. Yeah, okay.
borrow it. Well, your daughter's probably already seen 16 Candles, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
That's the big one.
yeah, yeah. She
Oh,
has. And I got grandchildren. She's blessed us with four grandchildren, and we're just happy with them. In fact, my wife, my oldest granddaughter, and my daughter are up in Denver, Colorado. My uh, granddaughter, she's 11, just turned 12 yesterday. She's a volleyball player,
I'm so glad you
and
didn't say figure skater.
just volleyball. Uh, my daughter was a skater. I mean,
I was
although
too.
she,
Yeah, it's
well,
tough. It's
she,
an expensive sport to keep up with, man. You guys had to probably work hard to keep that going. Coaches and handmade dresses and music and programs and all hours and oh my God, I remember going down to Skyrink and really my mom, her whole thing was people who do one thing like that, that's all they know. And she was not a fan of not being well-rounded, but she's turned me into somebody who knows not a little bit, like a lot about some stuff, a little bit about other stuff, but I know a lot about a lot of stuff, but not, I'm dangerous. I guess is where I'm going.
well, yeah, you're
But,
very smart. I can tell that.
I'm a high school dropout. I couldn't take it. I left at 10th grade. I never,
Really?
yeah, I'm 10th grade. I'm a high school dropout. I couldn't deal with it.
You must have. Did you go to did you catch
Nope.
up with GED
Nope.
or
Nothing. Nope. I went to,
self-taught? Self-taught.
it's not even taught. It's just self-observing. And, I'll go here with you now. One of my personal quests through these conversations is to try to figure out if I was ever involved in any kind of program. My IQ is pretty high. Like no matter what I've done to myself since 3 years old, I'm sure it's probably still up there. As damaged as my brain has probably become. Um, um, and I went to French school. I was speaking two languages at like a 5-year-old capacity by the time I was 3. Um, I would say things to my mom like I can't imagine that in my head. So I was able to conceive that I couldn't grasp a concept at 3. Like that,
Uh,
right? My mind, but I love turning my brain into a pretzel. I love, right? But it didn't go so well because my dad died when I was 5, so I had a lot of emotional trauma. My
hmm.
mom was control freak, super smart, also high IQ. Um, And so it was just a really weird life, being an only child and being exposed to the things I was exposed to. And we're back to Brett Morrison. I'm sure Monroe walked through the house at some point, like at one of my mom's fancy parties. So I wonder with all the IQ tests and and I don't feel smart. I feel different. I feel weird. I feel like I don't fit in. So all of this pumping of, oh, she's so smart. Like I just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller in myself because I didn't feel that. Like, so I fractured there a little bit, and it was really hard to navigate the world and society for me. But that being said, I wonder because I'm so resistant, like if there were ever a time where I was flagged for any reason as a child, um, Stargate is a word that comes to mind. All 3 of my kids were put into gate programs, which I think now are not all what it was once, which was very targeting. Like, let's find them all. I think it's a little less nefarious now. But still, I'm sure they're still out there looking. So I was perfect fodder for what people talk about as 20 and back and all this stuff, except for I don't like to listen. I don't like to conform. I don't like to be told what to think. So I'm sure if they tried, I was a program reject, 20 and back you know? So
Right.
I don't know what you know about all that stuff and if that's just too woo for you or what, but like I feel like there's a way to trace, maybe there's a microfiche somewhere that'll tell me what happened. Like
Have you ever been regressed?
Barbara Lamb did it once. That was interesting. A woman named Alyssa Herrera Wright did it once, and a one woman named Debs Shakti did it. And I have all 3 recorded. I'd be happy to share with anybody. I'm wide open. Like I'm very comfortable being vulnerable publicly. It's what I got paid for. It's what I got paid to do. So
Did
um
it did the regression show any missing time or any abnormal contact with strange looking creatures or beings?
with Barbara, I started stuttering like mandible, mantis, something like that. And toward the end of the regression, I started babbling about blue skinned people and crystals and crystalline structures, and that was weird. I also got very emotional in the Barbara Lamb regression. as if I'd been here before and I've been trying to tell these humans and they keep misconstruing it. And I can't believe I had to come back here again. And they told me not to, but I did it anyway, like gung ho, we can fix this. Like, and it was kind of like that feeling and of just being absolutely, I can't, why did I do this? Again, here we go again. Like, so I don't know with all these cataclysm stories, and now they're finding technology that doesn't come from this time and space, so these stories about Atlantis and Lemuria, and like, what if the Greek gods, like that TV shows, there's that show Chaos, have you
Mhm.
ever watched it?
Chaos. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
come on, dude, like, and the gods are coming back. I'm listening to an audio book by, I don't remember what his name is, and then I've listened to the William Tompkins stuff where like chosen by extraterrestrials or something. I'm looking at my library now, you know Edward Bulwer something or whatever. Shh, quiet. No, no, we're not listening to audiobooks now. Go away. I just threw my device across the room. It's like we'll just get too distracted and go down too many rabbit holes and not get anywhere. So like we can
But
have this
but
conversation
but
another
you
time.
could have it sounds like it's a possibility. You could have been abducted or had an experience or a
Something.
contact.
Why? Okay, here are two other things I can tell you. When I was little and I used to try to fall asleep at night, and I'm sure my audience is really sick of this one because I say it to everybody. I was trying to ask, like, why am I me? Why is this? Why? I'm just trying to understand why am I me? And I would get this flash of something that I didn't have a word for, which I now know is a nebula. Why am I getting flash nebulas? Then in the 1994 earthquake, I was in Santa Monica, big earthquake, the one that happened in Northridge.
Right.
So the transformers start popping. Car alarms are going off, and I just see this bright light like going right. I'm going, the first thought in my head was, oh my God, they're here. Like, and I'm somebody who doesn't pay attention to sci-fi. I really didn't care. I mean, I'm friends with Dean Devlin. He made Independence. I don't give a shit.
Mm.
Watching Twilight Zone, I think that's funny. Star Trek, I really didn't care about until after I got here and started watching Gaia and listening to interviews with extra dimensionals, and then listening to you guys start yapping your stories. And then I thought, wait a minute, something's weird. And then my mom's hallucinations were weird. She had some reptilian trying to boss her around, and I told it to get out of here. Like I was arguing with imaginary reptilians on behalf of my mother, who was Parkinson's demented. So, I feel like I literally, and I have orbs now. I don't know if I ever sent you that through an email. I do. I have orbs. Like, and that brings us to New Jersey again, right across the river. Like, there's a difference between orbs and plasma balls, which my daughter saw
Mhm.
going to a Hollywood Bowl concert, looked up in the air and saw this plasma ball doing weird stuff. And then it turned into three and then back into one and geometric shapes and the thing. So if it runs in a family, my daughter's seen it. She's seen me. She's experienced my cadence and my vocabulary changing and information coming out of my mouth that is not stuff that Liane says. Like, so she's seen me go into, and I don't know who, but blue skin is all I get. Blue skin, female vibes. Like, so it just sounds so nuts, and then light language. I started that too. Like it's, and then drawing weird stuff that are light language is what I was told by the woo community is what it is. So, there's just so much to look at that's been buried deep because it screws with the narrative, I think is the only thing I can come up with. It's like a race for who's going to disclose what first and who's going to believe what first. And then it's exhausting.
Have you ever had a scan of your body to determine whether you have it? Not a medical scan or a MRI, but a radial scanner. Something somebody using
I have a
one of
walkie-talkie
these.
like that. Yeah, I have a
Well,
back thing.
this is a unique one. This is one that can determine frequencies of a human. But to
Well,
determine
when
whether
you come over to Jam, you'll bring that with you, yeah?
I will bring that to
Okay.
you. And
And then we can
uh,
do a live and run Leanne's frequencies. It'll be crazy.
but what it also will determine whether you have any implants. You might have an implant and not even know it. There's a guy that I met a long time ago
Dr.
that had
Lear?
weird, no,
Oh,
somebody
no.
it's that had all these dreams and weird things happening to him. And so we used this. We found a chip in him, and this will do it because it's made specific. We made them at Dr. Putoff's lab, and
Well, that's
it
kind of
will
interesting. That's a
it
fun
will
little toy,
yeah.
Rick.
And so he had it in his hand, and he said, I had an itch there, and I don't know whatever happened, and so we ended up Dr. Kit Green took it out, and we examined it. It was definitely an NHI technology.
Interesting.
People don't
Well, and you
realize.
know that itching is a low grade pain. Like, I don't know if people know that. And I know that pain exists in a body where space that is supposed to be there has been usurped by something else, whether it's inflammation or a chip or whatever. Um, I have a weird little gland and a little thing that just like a little bump right there that I've always thought was weird ever since I was little. And I play with it all the time. It's not on the other side, but it's only on this side. Who
Could
knows?
very well be because
Maybe I have a chip in my face.
they have found them in the back of the neck, uh, under the ears, hands, uh, in the back, right near the end of the spinal cord, and the legs, between the toes. They've found them all over the place, and I think it's the reason, as Dr. Green, he's the expert in this, says that wherever the extraterrestrials have the opportunity, they might know not human anatomy, because there's more than one extraterrestrials visiting. Okay, there's more than one extraterrestrial that's doing these abductions. So
Well,
they
thinking that there's
may.
only one is nuts because that's just nuts.
Oh yeah,
That would mean
exactly.
that there are Earthlings and one other species out there. That's it. Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
It's not a
There's when I was in there, we knew of five, they were already been all over the internet. And now, as I understand, and I don't have a clearance anymore, but I understand there's nine known. The DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, classified nine extraterrestrials that visited Earth, and that's a complexity of people that, like the CE5, Dr. Green's CE5 program. Um, how does a human being, and I always ask this question. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a intelligence officer. I now teach. I teach online. I teach math online.
Can I add one thing
Uh,
to that? You're also
sure.
you're an awareness and you're conscious and you're in consciousness and you've got a direct line to whatever consciousness is without a middleman. So there's that. Don't forget that one.
That's true. And I again jump off this topic real quick. For the longest time, I didn't even think about consciousness. Now I read everything humanly possible about consciousness.
Me too, dude.
I think that's now what I think, and I'm thoroughly convinced of this. The the one thing that humans and extraterrestrials have in common is consciousness. I can almost guarantee that we have a consciousness, they have a consciousness. If we can connect our consciousness with their consciousness, now we can communicate.
Who's to say that God isn't the ultimate consciousness, that we've just named God in our own fractured way because we have to believe something that's leading or whatever, and then the co-opting of religions to make money and turn that into a commodity too. Like, I think we've been hacked, honey.
Well, there's a lot that I could talk about, but I'm not, but
But it's
about
not
that subject.
right. We can't do that today in
Yeah,
public.
we can't
It's
do
not
that
in
today.
public, and you probably can't do that with me either because I'm not cleared, and that's okay. I'm
But
clear-minded, but I'm not cleared. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to. But
no,
yeah,
no,
consciousness is
yeah,
fascinating. Like,
yeah, it is absolutely.
I don't know how anybody can go to work 9 to 5 when the idea of consciousness is out there. Like, how is that not stopping everything? Like, I've got a really, really weird question that's sort of on topic, but sort of not. Like, I do watch the Y-Files because he's kind of fun, and that fish is ridiculous. Like, I think that fish is only second to my crazy green bird, who you have not met, and that's fine. Birds are such they are. I love them, but they're such jerks. But oh gosh, what was I gonna say? No, I just read. What was was I saying? Come on, Rick, you're not ADD. What did I start saying?
You didn't finish. You said you had this question that
Right.
was
Yes, yes, yes. Y files. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's all I needed. A little trigger. Okay, so there was this story about a guy who got hit by lightning and disappeared for 3 days. And when he came back, he was wearing different clothes. And the short version is he'd gone to a parallel Earth where people in his real life who had died were still alive. And people like that kind of thing. So he shows up 3 days later in different clothes, insists that he's seen some specific doctor, like, and finds some guy, like, and it all whatever. And the doctor's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So basically, the idea that I described is that if lightning has properties that can take somebody who is a consciousness and an awareness and a physical body and somehow with the force of the jolt of the electric shock or whatever, it's 10th grade dropout. Sorry, guys. Be thrown into some different time, space, time, whatever. What's to say that a giant solar flare doesn't hit the Earth and throw all Earthlings into a parallel Earth scenario that's different? Like, what do they call that? The butterfly effect? Or Mandela syndrome.
Mandela, Mandela,
Yeah,
Mandela,
yeah.
Mandela.
Like, what's to say that the Mandela syndrome isn't something like that, where frequencies come in on some kind of a grid and some kind of like a Rubik's Cube kind of idea that just happens that we aren't conscious of? Like, is it possible that a solar flare could throw the whole species into a different timeline
Well,
on that
I
same?
think I know that story that I know
Is it true?
what yeah. In fact, the corduroy pants guy. Yeah,
The
yeah,
corduroy pants
yeah,
guy.
yeah. That's the
Not corduroy the bear, the corduroy
corduroy
pants guy.
pants
Completely
guy.
different characters.
Yeah, that I know that story. I know somebody that interviewed him in great details. Interviewed his wife. Did a really a detailed search of his property, his house. Yeah, I know that. I'm thoroughly aware of that. And what they think happened, and there are two psychics involved in this. And
The
then
lady in
there's
Florida? Is the lady in
yeah,
Florida? Yeah, okay.
yeah, the lady in Florida.
We like her.
Uh, yeah, I love her. Uh, The lightning, we know that with a certain amount of energy, we can open the fabric of space.
Like a
Uh,
portal,
like a portal.
like
We
Stargate.
we've done it. I was involved in a classified program back in back in the 80s at Area 51 that they were experimenting with doing that, and they actually did open one with a lot of power. So if a bolt of lightning could open up a fabric of space, and you just happen to be in that
That time
vicinity,
in that
and
space, in that point, that specific point.
exactly.
Right.
And that's how that happened. I'm pretty sure, and the other people that investigated it are pretty sure that's what happened and put him in a parallel universe or a parallel Earth.
Rick, well,
And
the only reason I'm asking that is like, let's go to my very end question. And I love Sam Ramirez, bless his heart. He's just probably not going to ever talk to me. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. I think he's older and he's tired and he just, we'll find out more when he writes whatever he writes and puts it in a manila envelope for somebody to find later, maybe. But like this event that everybody talks about, what's to say it's not some kind of an electromagnetic event that shocks us out of an indoctrination? Like, I really feel like the psyop that's happened at humanity, I feel like we've got groomers, and then we're so indoctrinated that we'll defend to the point where we make people like Betty and Barney Hill or whoever are experiencers and abductees and all that feel stupid, like, and ashamed. And it's just so not cool. You're fracturing people's psyche and making them second guess what they know. It's just like, so what if some kind of event were to cause like all the truth to come out because it made consciousness in each one of us like cohesive, like we all know now, or the thing that needs to make us kick over border of, okay, with that electromagnetic charge at all of humanity, it flipped on our psychic abilities, and now nobody can lie. And now, uh-oh, like, what if that's the event? Is that too weird?
No, I've heard of other theories. I don't know that we know. Maybe somebody else knows. I don't know. What I do know is that something's going to happen between now and 2027. I don't know what it's going to be. It could very well be what you said. It could be a everlasting event, or a catastrophic event, or it could be
I want to
the
go with what you said on Gaia, that you hope that it's a beautiful thing that,
beautiful, yeah, a beautiful event where we have a revelation of something, and the extraterrestrials come in and say, "Yeah, okay, here we are. We, one particular species, we're the benevolent ones, and we're going to help you. And here we are." Something to that effect. That's what I hope.
well, that was part one. I decided to split this into two because we talked for a kind of a long time. I'm sure there's plenty in the first part to ruminate and consider. Till then, you guys keep riding the frequency, and remember, you're the awareness. Bye, guys.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Frequency, 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 frequency.
I'm Liane. I'm Liane.
Are you ready to ride the frequency?